So the thing that's interesting about your story, though, you broke up with drugs and alcohol, but you did not break up with the restaurant and bar business.
That is correct.
How many people said to you, of all the things you could be doing, we don't know that this is the best choice for an alcoholic and a drug addict to be running a business like this? Okay.
A lot.
So why does it work for you?
I don't know. When I got out of treatment, I started going to my 12-step meetings, and there's a guy, he's still sober, and he's a good friend of mine now. He said, you came in with a black cloud over your head, and you were so full of anger, and you owned a bar, and we gave you zero chance of getting sober.
Hi, friend. Welcome to Call Me Friend, the podcast where we call my friends and you get one heck of a great story. This episode is brought to you by Miss Lou's Cabin, an Airbnb property on a remote section of the Georgia coast. Boy, when I talk incredible story, we have an almost unbelievable story today. Get ready to take a wild ride. Today, I'm going to call a woman named Scottie Bowman. She was an out-of-control alcoholic and drug addict for years, for decades, culminating with a 12-day drug, alcohol, out-of-control binge on the streets of Atlanta in 2002. What she did going from there to where she is today, well, it's simply inspiring. She is a successful entrepreneur with a number of restaurants, and that would be a great enough story as it is. However, she's taken her profits, her treasures, her success, and poured it into a number of sober living houses for other women who are in recovery. The story just has so much that I love. It has overcoming obstacles. It has second chances. It has kind of a second chance revolution where you get a second chance and then you go on to give a second chance to somebody else. You can see why I'm looking forward to talking to Scottie today. And then personally, I grew up in a family of addiction. My father was a compulsive gambler. He blew all of our family money. My mother had her own issues. And it wasn't until much later in my life where I came to realize how growing up in that really affected me and the choices that I was making. And actually, when I think about it, my mother also came from a long line of compulsive gamblers. So interesting choice that she made in my father. However, really, I'm not judging because, again, I made some interesting choices myself, and it took a long time for me to kind of reroute the ship. It also explains why I just love a story of somebody overcoming addiction and then going on to help others. And I really don't know what the magic formula is. Why do some people make it and some people don't? There's one way to find out. Let's go ahead and call Scottie. This episode of Call Me Friend is brought to you by Miss Lou's Cabin, an Airbnb property on a remote section of the Georgia coast. Do you ever go to a beautiful resort area and you long to know what it looked like before they paved paradise and put up a parking lot? Well, now you have your chance. Miss Lou's Cabin sits on 7 private acres on a tidal saltwater marsh about 50 minutes south of Savannah, Georgia. It is a place so quiet you don't even hear road noise. Instead, what you will hear, pink spoonbills, wild dolphins feeding off your private dock, the breeze whistling through the Spanish moss that hangs from the countless oak trees all over the property. The porch overlooking the marsh is the perfect place to hang with family, read a zillion books, catch the sunrise, all while you stay in a restored log cabin that has all the comforts and amenities of a beautiful home. Miss Lou's Cabin. Check out the link in the show notes or simply Google Miss Lou's Cabin and you'll find this piece of paradise. Well, hey, friend.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing so good. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I don't know if you realize, but you're actually giving me a little bit of medicine by agreeing to spend some time talking with me today.
No, but I love that.
It's all good, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I haven't had a chance to really tell you a lot about this, but I come from a family of addicts. I can now see as a grown-up adult person that that's what I grew up amongst.
Yeah.
And I can see how that's affected my life, and I can see who I've been drawn to, both positive and negative, and getting a chance to talk with somebody who has seen the darkest of the dark and is doing such incredible things with this next chapter is really, it's medicinal for me.
Well, thank you. I mean, I always, it's medicinal for me too. I really love talking about it and telling my story and trying to get the stigma of addiction erased.
So by reframing the story and what it is and what you can do with it, it's kind of like medicine back at you.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely.
Well, can we start with like the darkest of the darks?
Sure.
What was the low point, and how did you get there?
Well, I used drugs and alcohol for over 25 years. I started actually when I was 11 years old. And I think I started primarily because I was molested by my mother's. She had a husband who had lots of brothers. So there was her husband and one of the brothers. And, I really didn't understand that that was wrong. I thought that that was love, so it really skewed my views of sex and love pretty much my entire life. I know around the age of 15, I tried to tell my mom, and she threatened to put me in juvenile and said I was lying. And probably because I was high at the time, because I'd already started using. And so, I just kept using and she didn't put me in juvenile, but, I just never tried to talk to her about it again. But I continued using all throughout my adult life, in college, and in my work history life. I always thought I was a functional alcoholic addict. But, when I look back on it now, I realize had I not owned my own restaurant, I'd have not been employable. So really, when it got the darkest, I opened my first restaurant at the age of 31. And that afforded me money that I had not prior to that had. And so I really started using a lot more drugs and a lot more cocaine, rich man's drug, and I was burning through the money, and I was geeked out of my brain all the time and working 120 hours a week. It really probably all came to a head on New Year's Eve of 2001. And I gathered up just about as much drugs and alcohol as I can. And I went to Atlanta off on my way. I took a couple of ounces of weed. I took an ounce of cocaine. I took about 70 hits of ecstasy and 75 or 80 hits of Xanax. And I took all kinds of vodka and alcohol with me. And over the next 12 days, I snorted, smoked, ingested, drank every bit of that drugs. And till the point where after that 12 days, I really thought I was going to die. And honestly, before
so you were doing this on the streets of Atlanta?
Yes.
So you were just in your car? You weren't staying someplace or doing it with other people?
I was staying with a friend. He had gone with me, and we had some friends in Atlanta. But we were at the bars mostly, not even, back then, the bars there was a couple of bars there that stayed open all night, and we would just be there all night long. And we did that for 12 days. Really, before that time, I kind of thought I welcomed death. Really, I was so far depressed, and I couldn't stop. And I just kept thinking, I just, death would be a blessing.
At least it would be over.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, and something changed in me that day, though, after that 12-day stint in Atlanta. It was January 12th, and I came home finally, and I had left my restaurant to its own devices. So I just left the restaurant to run itself, basically. And I'd spent all the money we'd made over the 5-year period. I did have a loan at the time to open the restaurant, and I paid that, and paid my bills, but everything surplus of that, I snorted up my nose pretty much. And
Scottie, this is such a mess. I just can't even, I'm trying to wrap my head around how you kept this going, how you kept alive.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is when I look back on it now, I think it was probably a God thing, that kept me alive. I don't talk a lot about God in the rooms and stuff, but sometimes there is no other explanation.
Yeah.
Because any normal person that did the amount of drugs I did would be dead. And so there was some reason that I did not die. It just
Well, we're going to get to that reason. There's some good reasons. So before January 12th of 2002, had you ever tried to quit before? Had you ever said, this is enough, I need to clean up my act?
I had tried, but not very earnestly. I really just tried to, with a foxhole prayer, like I said, and just, hey, get me out of this jam. Or if I got put in jail or got a DUI, I'd say, oh, I'm never going to do that again. But I had never made a serious effort to try and quit. I had gotten so bad that I was basically, any friend that tried to talk to me about my addiction, I would just kind of tell them to screw off. I'm not hurting anybody but myself. It's none of your business. I had gotten so apathetic about it and actually angry. I was like, I didn't want anybody confronting me about it. And, I said it was none of their business. I'm spending my own money. But,
True enough,
honestly,
though.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Oh,
I was, but
weren't.
I was kind of embezzling a little bit. I mean, that wasn't technically my money. I did pay the taxes on it, but it was taking so much money out of the restaurant that it was nearly failing. And honestly, it should have. And honestly, my reputation had gotten so bad in the town that even my friends were like, I don't want to spend money in your restaurant because I know it's going up your nose. I don't want to visit your restaurant anymore. There's so many other restaurants and bars. And it was a bar back then. It was kind of like, and I also looked at it like a playground for me. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's my own place. I can get high all I want. I can drink all the alcohol. I can do whatever I want. And
not great.
So that did not bode well for me.
That did not. But somehow you make it through, and this huge binge of all binges, bringing new meaning to the 12 days of Christmas, after Christmas.
Correct.
January 12th, 2002. What happens?
Well, I came home, and my best friend at the time, his name was Scott. His mother actually is who I bought my weed from, and they lived right next door to me in the duplex. But I went to her house and I said, hey, I think I'm dying. I mean, I was clutching my heart. I was so geeked out that I was like crawling back and forth on her couch, kind of like an inchworm. I was like, I think I'm going to die. I think I'm having a heart attack. I don't know what to do. And for some reason, that moment, talking to her, I realized that I didn't want to die. That's the first time that I'd said to myself, death is not a blessing. I don't want to die. And that is the moment of clarity that really set me on the road to try and get in recovery.
Well, clarity is one thing, but what do you do? I mean, you knew how to get high, you knew how to score drugs, but did you know how to get clean?
Sure didn't. Had no idea. And so I went back to the restaurant, and there was a good friend of mine, and he came in, and we called him Dr. Brian. He was a local dentist, and he had been coming to the Big Chill for several years, and he had told me about trying to get sober before. But Dr. Brian told me where he had gone to treatment. And it was a place in Knoxville called Cornerstone. And I called that treatment center and I begged them to let me in. I called them morning, noon, and night. I called them 3 times a day for 5 days until finally, I don't know if they just got sick of hearing from me or just decided I really wanted to get sober. I've never had to beg so hard to get in a hospital type atmosphere. And they said, okay, come tomorrow. We got a bed for you. And I did. And then, I stayed there for 6 months. And
6 months? This wasn't any like 28-day thing. This was serious.
It was 28 days, but then I stayed in their sober living house after that, which is why I have such a fondness for sober living houses. They said I wasn't ready because I couldn't come back to a bar after 30 days.
Well,
and I'm
going to get to that. I'm going to get to that. But so were you, okay, 6 months, yes. But was it just one time through rehab and it stuck? Because I've heard a lot of people, the first time doesn't do it. So once you did 2002, it's been a straight line. There have been no relapses.
No relapses. I have 24 years sober on January 17th coming up. So,
well, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
So the thing that's interesting about your story, though, you broke up with drugs and alcohol, but you did not break up with the restaurant and bar business.
That is correct.
How many people said to you, of all the things you could be doing, we don't know that this is the best choice for an alcoholic and a drug addict to be running a business like this?
Okay. A lot.
So why does it work for you?
I don't know. When I got out of treatment, I started going to my 12-step meetings, and there's a guy, he's still sober, and he's a good friend of mine now. He said, you came in with a black cloud over your head, and you were so full of anger, and you owned a bar, and we gave you zero chance of getting sober. I mean, he was like, I swear we could have took bets on it because nobody gave me a chance to stay sober. The only reason I know that it worked is because I worked at it. I really, when I was in that treatment center for those 28 days, I wrote like a mad woman. Every assignment they gave me, I tried to pour out all the trauma and all the pain and all of the anger on paper. And I burned letters to people. I wrote, letters to my dad, who was never in my life, my grandmother, who I was angry at for dying, my mother that didn't protect me. I wrote all of these, letters of what they did to me, and then I just burned them. I had to do anger diaries. I had to do exercises where I would write down what I was worried about and seal it in an envelope and then open it in 90 days and see if it had worked itself out. And almost everything worked itself out. And those were just some of the lessons that I had to learn. I had to do exercises to make my insides match my outsides. Like I was always wanted to put on a persona of having it together, but I would have to wear like 2 different socks or 2 different shoes or wear my shirt inside out. Some of those things that you're not comfortable with doing to try and learn how that it was okay, that what was on the inside is okay.
Well, interesting side story there about the friend there who said that they wouldn't have bet on you. That's what I grew up in. I grew up with compulsive gamblers. My dad blew all of our money. If he bet on you, you would not have stayed sober because he did not know how to place a winning bet, which was part of the problem. But he was sure the next one was going to fix it. I could have told you that. Yeah,
I know how
there you
that
go.
Is.
So 3 restaurants in Chattanooga, 3 doing well, bars and restaurants. And that would be, Scottie, let me tell you, the work you've done, what you've overcome, you're running these restaurants, enough story right there. That is a huge story. You're already so far past where most people go. And yet you take it the next step of creating these sober living houses for other women in recovery. How does that come about?
When I got home from treatment 24 years ago, literally, Big Chill had $1,000 to its name. I wasn't able to take a salary for like almost 2 years. Luckily, my car was paid for, but I was just like, it was a struggle. And I just kept working to continue to make it come back, to build it back and change my reputation in the city. I had an old rental house and it was, on the street where all my houses are. And I couldn't keep it rented because it had no insulation. The light bill was as high as the rent. So I couldn't keep anybody in it. I thought, well, I've got some money put aside, so I'm going to tear it down and I'm going to build a sober living house. And that's what I did.
Start fresh.
Tore it down, rebuilt it, spent $282,000 of my own money and built my first sober living house. A friend of mine helped me name it the Launchpad, which I thought was great, launching women into a better way of life through sobriety. And a pad is a slang for a house, right? So that's why we named it the Launchpad. And then we opened smack in the middle of COVID of 2020. It was hard to get. We delayed opening some because COVID was really bad those first from March to May. We opened it June of 2020, And then during that time, I started buying property around it as well out of my pocket. I bought a trust that had like 8 lots in it and another house. And then I bought another house on a lot. And I bought these with the intention of building more sober living houses. So over the next 5 years, I donated each lot as we raised money to build the other 4 houses. So all the houses are on lots that I bought and donated. I bought the first one and paid for it. And then Karen Hutton gave us $1.2 million, and which it was 300,000 per house, and she built the next 4. So that's how we ended up with 5 houses.
So today, what does the Launchpad look like?
Today we have 5 houses. We service 55 women at a time. We have 6 staff members. We started an executive director a couple of years ago. I bought a house at the end of the block that about 2 years ago, and we moved our offices into there. I bought that out of my pocket, renovated it. I still own it, and they do, like, because I'm upside down in donations on my taxes. So my accountant said, no, don't donate anymore yet.
Ease up.
Yeah. So they pay me $1 a year for rent, and that's where our offices are. And then last year, actually early this year, at the end of last year, we started a relationship with some guys that live on Morningside and Eveningside, which is the next road to us. And they owned about 15 lots. And they sold them all to us. So
and what are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with those?
4 of them. Okay. And they sold us a tract of 8, a single one, and a tract of 4 on the corner. So that's 13. And then we already still have 5, because right beside the house, I still own 2 that haven't been donated. We bought the one in the middle from the guy across the street, and the city and county donated two lots to the Launchpad. So we now have 18 lots. Oh, and those guys gave us 4 lots. So we have 22 lots, and it's all on the same road with our houses. So our plan is to take the 8 tract lots and put what we're calling the Healing House. That's going to be a multi-use community center, meeting space. Our offices will move there. We'll have classrooms, like a computer room, and we'll have a hairdresser room for volunteer hairdressers to come, and the women can make appointments for them. We'll have rooms for their children for visitation with toys and games. We'll have a room large enough for 100 people that we'll be able to rent out as a venue, and also have meetings to house all of our 55 women at a time. And then we want to put a cottage industry in there, maybe a cafe or a resale shop, or we've even talked about dog kennels overnight, some kind of money-making business that makes money for the Launchpad. So it's a stream of revenue. That way, we're making money. And we would also have places for the women to work. So it's going to help us with our job readiness program and helping our women to become employable. And then
speaking of work, one thing I love about the Launchpad, as I understand it, nobody rides for free. This isn't like, oh, come sit on your bed while you're getting sober. No. It's tough to be in there.
It's very tough. And I believe in work. I'm kind of a workaholic, but I also believe you have to work the program. The 12 steps, it doesn't just come to you. You have to work that program. You have to work a job. So our requirements are, you have to get a job in 14 days. You have to pay rent. It's $130 a week. You do 12-step program. You go to 4 AA meetings a week, and you have to get a sponsor. So there's a lot of requirements on them. Oh, and they have to do 5 hours of community service a month. So We
I'm
make some big
exhausted
communities.
just hearing about it.
They're worn out.
They're busy. Well, and busy helps, right?
Not
Busy
for the
is
faint
good.
of heart.
No, it's not. No, it's
well,
not.
It helps us to know truly who's willing to make the sacrifices to get sober because, it was the hardest thing I ever did. And if I could have done it earlier, I probably would have. But, it was the most difficult thing I ever did. And I never want to be on the other side of step one again.
So some women come and they have all these requirements. Are there some who you have to say, I don't think you're ready, you're going to have to go?
We do. We sometimes do. If they relapse, it's automatic. They're automatically put out of the program. We do try to get them back in treatment, though. That we have a relationship with CADIS, and I can't tell you how many women that we've sent back through CADIS to get another 30 days, and we accept them back in. We keep trying. It's not a dead end road by any means, but we do get them back in treatment. I mean, we've had a couple that were homeless, and we got them in treatment, and they came to us after the 30 days. So it's really women of all kinds. We get women from the street. We get women out of recovery centers, CADIS, Focus, Bradford, Cornerstone in Knoxville, my old treatment center. We have a relationship with a couple of them in Atlanta as well. And we've also been approved by Tennessee and Georgia state parole boards. So we get women out of prison if they're on drug-related charges, no violent offenses. But if it's drug-related charges, we can get them out on furlough and they can stay with us and do their probation. And we kind of help them to, get a job and get back on their feet. So
let me ask you a couple of questions about sobriety. I'm not a professional, obviously, but for so many people, the addiction is really just kind of the symptom of all the other stuff that's going on in there. And it can numb you, it can distract you, it can do all those things. And so sometimes being sober is not a comfortable, wonderful option. How is sobriety for you? Was it
was
happy,
difficult.
miserable? Yeah. I mean, do you have days even today where you're like, oh, this doesn't feel so good?
Much farther and fewer between. But yes, I do still have them. I mean, I've had an incident this week where I just felt uncomfortable in my skin. And I was like, where is that coming from? I've always had a lot of issues with self-esteem. And, people think that's crazy when they look at me and they're like, but you're so successful. And, you have all of this stuff going for you. You have a beautiful fiance. You have all these restaurants and you have the Launchpad. And still some days I feel inadequate. And I'm like, I just don't understand where it's coming from. And I have to go and I have to dig deep in there and figure out what it is. When I first got out of treatment, I had been there for 6 months, and it was the anniversary of Big Chill. It was I think at that time, it must have been our 6th anniversary. So I was going to go in for our anniversary party, and I put my little suit on. I walked in the door and I was like, nope. And this just dread came over me. And I said, I can't do it. I cannot work in this bar today. And I remember I ran home, I turned off my cell phone, I got on my knees, and it's the first time I really remember praying earnestly and sincerely. And I was like, God, don't let me get high today. God, don't let me get high today. God, don't let me get high today. And it was tough for a few years, really. It took some time. I had to change what I thought about the Big Chill. I had to stop looking at it as my playground and look at it as a job. I had to stop working till 4 a.m. And we were always open till like 3, and it took us till 4 to get out. I had to start going home at 10 o'clock at night and hiring people to stay for me after that. And my friend Scott that I partied with in Atlanta, he's the one that actually drove me to treatment. He worked for me at Big Chill. I left him to his own devices. He had worked for me like 2 weeks, and I said, hey, I'm out. I'm going to treatment. And and he was just left and didn't know anything about running a restaurant. He'd come from convenience stores management. And but he stayed with me through my first it was probably a decade into my sobriety before he passed away.
Oh.
But he never got sober. And I tried to get him sober so many times, but he just never was ready to get sober. But even though he died, he saved me in a lot of ways,
Right. Okay. So this is where I started kind of getting a little emotional, both from a frustration. I don't even know what I'm going to call the feelings, but so my experience with addicts are, not to be Debbie Downer. I mean, I have had some good friends who have come through and have been very inspired. I'm always drawn to those people. But with my family, it's like the music just stopped. Like there's this hallmark version of everybody hits bottom and then goes through it and gets better and has a Scottie chapter. But for those that are closest to me, that's not what happened. It's like the music just stopped and then like they just die. Like it's just done. And so what do you do with that? Both with the people who are close to you, but also with the women that you work with. You put so much into this. For people who don't make it through, what do you do with those feelings and how do you process that? That's what I really want to know.
Yeah, it's very difficult. There were so many times early in my sobriety where somebody died, OD'd from opioids, somebody that I was in a meeting with yesterday and they died today. And, I would have to go and talk about it in meetings. One thing that I was really good at, like I said, how I wanted to get all my trauma out in treatment, I used AA like therapy. Daryn, my family is the same way. There are addicts in there, and I'm the only one sober, and it came to a point where I had to, a lot of times I had to stop doing things to enable them. Yeah. And it was hard because I don't say no very well.
No.
And, and if I say no, I feel guilty about it. So it took a lot of I had to practice. I had to practice how to say no, how to detach with love. I had to go to Al-Anon meetings too.
Yeah.
To start learning how to deal with other addicts.
So when you come from it and you break out of it, you would think that people are rooting for you, but everyone's not rooting for you to break out of it because it's threatening to the system that you break out of.
Yes.
And there can be a cost for that. Okay, I'll share a little story. Height of CNN, making a ton of money. My dad called me and he says, hey, doll, I could use a little money this month to cover a few expenses. I'm like, okay, how much? And he said, $7,000 to do it for this month. And I was like, holy cow. It was that point that I realized there was no safety between my dad's addiction of gambling, and he really did love being a father, but there was no boundary. If I had opened the floodgates, if I had just done to be a good daughter to help him out, I'd already bought him a car, I'd already done whatever. If I hadn't stopped, he would have drained me dry. But then making different choices, they weren't always so happy about making different choices. No, it's hard. It's not. Yeah.
They get angry at you.
They do get angry.
No. Yeah. And that affects the way you feel about yourself.
Yes.
And it's a vicious cycle, though. And, I would go in and I'd talk about it in the 12 steps rooms. And this old guy named Tom, he was crusty old geezer. He was just mean as he could be. And he would always say, no is a complete sentence. And, and he pounded that into me for a decade. And I still struggle to say no.
Yeah, I appreciate all of that. Who in this journey, and you've mentioned a lot of friends, who is the friend who really has made the biggest difference in your journey in your life when you think of that friend?
Really, it's somebody that's totally unexpected.
Okay.
But it was Jack Lupton. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
I don't know Jack.
Jack Lupton, he's passed away now, but his family started the Coca-Cola bottling company.
Oh.
In Chattanooga. So, he had a lot of money, and he had followed me from restaurant to restaurant when I was serving and bartending. And he ultimately loaned me the money to open Big Chill in the first place. But that's not the difference that he really made in my life. The difference comes later. Back then, I opened Big Chill for $280,000, and and I paid him back. It took me 12 years to pay him back. I paid him back before he died. But what he really did for me was, after about 3 years of Big Chill open, he came in all the time, and he would say, "What is wrong with you?" Every time he said, "What is wrong with you?" Because I was always sick. I was always geeked out of my brain. I would be no sleep, and I would look terrible. And he kept asking me, "What's wrong?" And I kept saying, "I just don't feel good, Jack. I don't feel good." Mm-hmm. So one day he came in and he said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I just don't feel good." And he said, "Well, why don't you go to the effing doctor?" And I said, "I don't have insurance." So he owned the Coca-Cola company, and he had a lot of other investments, but he had a company policy for insurance, and his secretary brought me in person an application for insurance the next day, and he paid for my insurance for the next decade. But without that insurance, I wouldn't have been able to go to Cornerstone of Recovery. That's a very expensive treatment center. And I was able to go to Cornerstone for like $3,000 out of pocket. And the insurance he paid for me paid the other $30,000 for me to be there. And
was he alive long enough to see that happen?
He was. He was. And, and when I finally went to treatment, I called him and I said, "Jack, I've been lying to you." I said, I'm going to go to treatment. And I said, "I'm a drug addict." And he said, "Well, I've been waiting for you to figure it out." And so I let him know that I was going to treatment, and, I'd be gone for a while. And when I got back, I continued to pay my loans, and I continued to see him. He always sent me a Christmas gift. He would invite me to his house. He had a little apartment downtown. But, he wasn't like he was like a friend that I would party with or hang out with.
Thank goodness.
But yes, but he was more of a friend to me than so many other people, because he gave me a gift that I could never repay.
Yeah. Scottie, I love that story for so many reasons. One, I'm inspired by the gift that he gave you in terms of he invested in you. He kept investing in you all those years from the time he said, well, he loans you the money. He probably knew you probably weren't the best bet at that point, right? Yeah, but he loans you the money. He gets you insurance. It's still a big chunk of time. That's all those years of investment before you finally got yourself to recovery and to go to rehab. And then that's what you're doing now for these women, right? Now they will have already have to be going through recovery, but just like he invested in you, you're investing in them. And it's this second chance revolution that we give, and then they give, and then it just keeps going. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that friend with me.
I remember when I got him paid off, I wrote him a little letter, and he sent me a handwritten letter back, and he was like, "I'm so proud of you." And honestly, to this day, and his wife will tell you this, and so will his lawyers, I'm the only person that ever paid him back. And he loaned way more money than $280,000. He loaned people millions, but I'm the one that paid him back that $280,000. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have let him die without having paid him back.
And then I just want to say and explain our connection. I got to meet you through Just One More Foundation that I helped Richard Rogers run, and giving grants for second chances. And we're big supporters of the Launchpad. And boy, if anything's a slam dunk when that application comes through, the work that you're doing and the results, it's amazing.
Well,
and I will go ahead.
Y'all were amazing. I mean, I think we got your first grant.
You were in our first round. You were in our first round, and it was a no-brainer. I will just say, I'll take you in the room where it happened. It was like, boop. that one's for sure. That one's for sure.
Of that.
Yes, that was really good. And we'll have links to the Launchpad and to Just One More Foundation and all those things in the show notes Of course. And then on a lighter note, the lightest of the note of this whole intense, wonderful conversation, we like to ask everyone, what's the thing that you're recommending to a friend these days? It could be a show, a book, a place, a beauty product. What's the thing that you're excited about?
Well, I know this is so crazy. I just bought a beach house like a year and a half ago, and I just learned about these things called snackle boxes.
A snackle box.
Yeah,
I have
it's
not
like
heard of
a
a snackle box.
but
Okay.
you put, it's all little compartments, and you put all of your snacks in it, and it's got a little ice thing underneath to keep it cold, so you can put like charcuterie board stuff, or dried cranberries, or mangoes, or M&Ms, and everybody has, and then you just pass it around to everybody sitting under the tent, and we call it a snackle box, and
That's
I think
crazy.
they're amazing. My friends that I call the glampers, because they all have they all go glamping. They showed me that, and I'm like, oh, I've bought 4 of them, and I've given them to everybody. And we just went to Tybee Island, and I showed it to some friends in Tybee, and they were like, oh, we love it. So I bought them one to give them.
Well, we're down the road from Tybee. We're on the Georgia coast, about 35 miles south of Savannah. So next time you're down this way, you have to come. First of all, that's the second.
Will.
And that snackle box, that's going on our boat. That's be perfect.
They're perfect.
Our little boat named Queenie. That'd be perfect. This is what friends do for each other. We let us know about all the cool stuff.
Yes.
Would not have known about it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the time, and thank you for the call. Thank you for the work. Thank you for the wisdom. Just a big thank you. I really have enjoyed our time together.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I always welcome the time to talk about addiction and try to, help people to understand that we're just sick people trying to get better. And, that doesn't mean that you have to put up with people, though. You do have to have boundaries and know when to say no. It's a fine line to walk between. But, if I can get people to understand that we can change, because I certainly changed.
You certainly have. But don't change from this. We love this.
Thank you.
Just freeze in time. Thank you, Scottie.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I love that call with Scottie Bowman so much. I just need to tell somebody about it. So I need to make another call. So I'm going to call my sister. Let's call Kallan. Hi, my sister.
Hi, my sister. You look so pretty on your podcast set.
Thank you, but I can't see you. Why can't I see you?
Because I don't look as pretty at my desk. So one Kagan sister on camera. That's how it should be.
Okay, so you're not going to come on camera. That's fine. I just wanted a chance to talk to you, call you. I wanted to tell you about the call I just had. So this woman named Scottie Bowman, I would say the overarching theme is addiction. She has a hell of an addiction story, decades and decades. I mean, she listed the things that she's done. I don't think she left anything off the list, from drugs to alcohol to every substance in the world. 12-day binge in Atlanta.
Oh my.
Finally got clean. And now she runs these restaurants in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and she takes her profits and she builds sober living houses for other women in recovery.
No way. Wait, go back. She climbed she was an addict herself and struggled with addiction, and now she runs restaurants? How did that happen?
Well, she always was in the restaurant industry. I guess she was using her restaurant to fuel her addiction, which she realized that's not a great business plan. But she got clean, and she says she can still be in the restaurant and bar business while staying clean. And she's like over 20 years sober. So this is not like a new concept for her.
Right.
And yes. But I was so interested to talk to her because she is an addict who has overcome her addictions, and we grew up with various kind of addictions around us and people that kind of didn't get their act together. And so I'm always fascinated with people who do.
I mean, it's such a rough road to climb to be a success in this world in general. But when you slip like that and you have those challenges to overcome, it's like quadruple the work. Amazing.
Yeah.
How did she do it?
I think she was ready. I think she finally really just I mean, but it's cliche, but like she hit bottom and she was ready, and she had people who had believed in her and paid for health insurance so she could go to a great rehab. And she put 6 months of work into it. And she said she really, really, to this day, works the programs that you have to really want it. And
She still does.
she still does.
Yeah.
She still does. I think now she's addicted to helping people in recovery. Like that's her thing. But that's great. And that's fine. But the two things I really took away from her, the word grace kind of kept coming to mind. I guess she had a very rough childhood, and giving some grace to that little girl who was sexually abused and who had a mother who didn't protect her and who had a lot of pain. So like maybe she wasn't so wrong to go towards substance, that there was a lot of legitimate pain there. And she just has a lot of grace for people who are still in it. You know, these sober living houses that she has, they have some strict guidelines, and you really do have to work the program and literally work and do things. And if you don't, you're asked to leave. But you're asked to leave and they get them into treatment programs. Hopefully that they'll come back. And just realizing that it isn't a straight line for everybody. I just really like talking to her. And then, you know how I like to ask people what's the thing that they are recommending on a lighter note. She's got a great thing. Oh my gosh, we have to get this.
What is it?
And maybe you've heard of it, but it's a snackable box.
Okay.
So it looks like a tackle box, she said, or like a giant box.
A snackle box.
Snackle box, yes. But at the bottom is like a little ice tray.
Uh-huh.
And so it keeps things like refrigerated, but you've got all your little things. You could have M&Ms, you could have fruit, you could have whatever that has to stay cold. That would be such a great thing to have on the boat or take to the beach. Or
was she snackling on the podcast?
No, but she said she has kind of a new beach house. And so somebody at the beach house had either gifted her or turned her on to this. And now this is the thing that she gives to everybody. So anyhow, we'll have a link to a snackle box. That's right. It's not snackable. It's a snackle box.
I love that. And I love it for the boat. That's a really great idea. That's a great idea.
Yes. So that's the big things I took away. Grace for addicts and snackle box. It was a very productive hour time of talking to Scottie Bowman.
It goes back to what we say, like there's something relatable about everyone's story. And, you know, even if you can't relate necessarily to the story of addiction, I can relate to snacking, and I need to snack all the time. So I love that. There you go.
And hostessing, this is something that's very important to us.
Yes, true. How does she give back to the sort of the community? Like you're saying, she helps other addicts. Like, how does she do that?
Well, she has this nonprofit called the Launchpad in Chattanooga, and started with one house that was kind of a house she couldn't do anything with, so she knocked it down. I guess living in a sober living environment really helped her. So she built one house. Then she bought the lot next door and the lot next to that. Like now they have 18 lots in this neighborhood.
Oh my God.
Chattanooga. And so there's 5 sober living houses. They have career counseling. They have all sorts of things to help these women as they've already gone through rehab. They need to support a community to get up and out. And so that's how she does it.
I mean, I know it's so hard to overcome addiction, and I know that so many people have failures before they have successes. And I can only imagine that if you were in this facility that was helping you and you knew that it was founded and run by someone who had been where you have been, that would just be, I would hope, more meaningful, right? Like really meaningful that someone did it and got out and then helped other people. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And the people you surround yourself with.
Right.
She talks about that she comes from a family of addicts and she's really the only one that's gotten clean.
Yeah.
And we talked about how it's sometimes hard to make healthy choices when people around you aren't making healthy choices, and how everyone isn't always happy about that. And I didn't realize that until I started making some healthy choices, and some people in our family weren't happy about that. And so that kind of helped me give myself a little grace too. And also the other people in our family who maybe could use some grace as well.
Right. It goes every way, right?
It does.
It totally does. It's, life is tough on this planet. And I think, it gets tougher all the time. And none of us are promised anything. And so surrounding yourself with amazing people, leaning into, relationships that work, like our relationship, and then taking the gas off of others is kind of how you have to manage it. I don't know any other way.
I agree with that, except I disagree with one important thing you just said.
What?
That nothing is promised to us.
Oh.
I'm going to promise you that I will get you a Snapple box.
Oh my gosh. Yay. Okay.
A Snapple box is promised to you.
I want it, except for I have the request, which is snackle box filled with snacks that you choose. I don't want an empty snackle box. I want you to.
Oh, okay.
I want like Dackle snackle box. I want I want you to pick because you're, I don't want to toot your horn or anything, but you are an excellent snacker as well. You do know I enjoy snack. Yeah. So I want a full snackle box and then a DAC snackle box. And then that way, I think it will be even more meaningful.
Okay. Good note.
Perfect.
Thanks for taking my call, my sister.
I love it. I love it. Keep going. Keep finding all these amazing people and introducing us to all of them. It's working.
I will.
All right. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
And remember, friend, you can always call me. I have a number dedicated for this podcast. It's 912-766-0446. You can also reach me on all the social media platforms. Just DM me and send me a message. However you want to do it, just reach out and call me friend. You've been listening to Call Me Friend. Executive producers for the show are Kallan Kagan and me, Daryn Kagan. The show is produced by Produce Your Podcast and Journeyist Inc. Production by Abe Falek, Tammy Gagno, and Rob Pa.
Before you go, Call Me Friend is more than a podcast, it's a community. So head over to callmefriendpodcast.com to join the conversation. Or you can call or send a text to 912-766-0446, and you can leave Daryn a message there, or maybe even share a story of your own. Because when life gets real, you don't have to go it alone. Call a friend. Call this friend.